The last 3 episodes of Ironheart dropped last night, and boy, was the resolution worth the wait. My name is CapnTrippz, and I'm here with my thoughts about the 6-part miniseries and the implications on the MCU from here on out. What's good, world? If you're watching from here on out, I have to warn you that we'll be talking details about Marvel's Ironheart. So if you have not finished the miniseries, go forward at your own risk. Significant spoilers ahead. While the show picks up pretty much where we last left Riri, I'd be remiss to not discuss the lack of marketing and rollout around this show up until the 11th hour on Marvel's part. Fans shared their concerns about the perceived lack of support by Disney and wondered if the show was being put out to sink or swim. Compared to campaigns built around some of the other shows on Disney Plus in recent history, think like Agatha All Along, Andor, or even Daredevil Born Again, right? The marketing only picked up in the weeks and days ahead of last week's premiere. Matter of fact, during DreamCon this year, I was caught off guard when it was being announced during the conference that Dominique Thorne would be attending a panel. I felt like that should have been locked in prior to the convention or like other information, as the potential audience for the show and the demographics of DreamCon attendees overlaps into a complete circle. I now believe that Marvel knew what supposed fans of the imprint would do because they've done it before, right? Think about other woman-led Marvel properties. Outside of WandaVision, almost all have been received with less than the usual fanfare that Marvel shows usually receive. Go check Rotten Tomatoes. Additionally, the Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes-led Captain America and the Winter Soldier and the Nick Fury-led Secret Invasion are universally panned by Marvel fans, right? I can't comment on Secret Invasion because I haven't watched that or Mrs. Marvel, and those are the only 2 MCU shows I haven't watched. But Captain America featured themes of race and the weight of Sam accepting the mantle of Captain America in a country that would rather have a Steve Rogers clone in the position. We'll talk about that more a little later on. But let's get into Ironheart. In discussing the show, I want to break the miniseries down into 2 parts because it leaned heavily on tech and magic, at least to me, in the releases of the episodes last Tuesday and Tuesday, July 1st. So let's talk about the first half of the season, the tech half. That dealt with Riri getting kicked out of MIT for plagiarism after being caught offering her services to other students on campus in exchange for funds to rebuild her suit. It turns out that after having unlimited resources in Wakanda, Riri was back in the land of bureaucracy on campus, having to deal with the limitations of budgets, sharing resources and space with others on campus, and of course the watchful eye of the administration. After an accident in the lab, the block is hotter than Riri realizes. When she tries to flex the leverage she thinks she has, Riri is surprised not only to be denied her grant to continue her work, but expelled for violating that school's plagiarism policy. Honestly, for a genius, I feel like she should have planned for that. I mean, if you're doing something that is against the biggest rule on campus, you probably should keep it on the low or have contingencies in place. But as you'll see throughout the rest of the season, Riri often acts first, leaving consequences to bite her in the iron hide. It's not long after she returns home that she catches the eye of Parker Robbins, who leads a gang of thieves targeting tech CEOs around Chicago for reasons unexplained. For now. As we'll see time and time again in this show, Riri will do whatever it takes to finish her work. She's driven by an impulse even stronger than her uncommon sense. We come to find out that this is due to bearing witness to the killing of not only her stepfather Gary, but also her best friend Natalie. To Riri, home is where the trauma is, and now that she's back home, her impulse to keep the people around her safe manifests in her near obsession with completing work on her armor. In taking the job with the gang, Riri puts herself on a deadline to have her suit, which is damaged en route to the Shy, rebuilt and ready to go. So her first step is to create an AI to help her run the suit. She connects her brain to her computer, and that leads me to ask where the ethical standards on this project are. I guess not here. And then she falls asleep while dreaming of her friend Natalie. When she awakes to a digital recreation of Natalie, I personally was thrown off by her response to it. She's horrified and wants to delete the imprint, but Natalie didn't force you to dream of her. Reluctantly, she comes to accept Natalie's help, which leads her to Joe McGillicuddy, a dude buying high-powered tech off of the black market, which is a totally normal hobby where I'm from. I don't know about y'all. Things get real when that night's job goes left and Riri needs to be saved. The heist sequence leading into Riri's rescue show the audience two things, right? Some of the supernatural powers of the hood, and that Natalie recalls the events that led to her death from Riri's memories that were imprinted upon her. Those are memories that Riri refuses to unpack, even on her own terms. She alchemizes her pain into her drive to work a problem and keep her and her loved ones safe. So when Stewart, who's a fellow techie and a former gang member, played by Eric Andre, ends up dead, Riri begins to get a little concerned about the dude with the magical cape robbing people not being a good guy. No concerns before then, right? She then turns to Joe for help and ends up finding out that he's not who he seems to be either. He's in fact Ezekiel Stane, son of Obadiah, who was Tony Stark's mentor. I really like this revelation and how it strengthens the connection to the Iron Man legacy and that connection to the MCU that we all know and love. It was a really great move by showrunner Chinaka Hodge to up the stakes in ways that are going to pay off later. Of course, Riri's hard-headedness and determination to retrieve a piece of the hood to analyze is going to go wrong, right? This leads to the death of John, who's the hood's right hand. Of course, this causes him to crash out and start yelling at shadows and shit, and that leads to a vision that Riri is in fact responsible for John's death. Ah, hell. From episode 4 on, episode 4 is called Black Magic, through to the finale, we'll call this side of the miniseries the magic side, as it heavily deals with the mystic, making connections to other parts of the MCU that even I couldn't predict, and some that we've been waiting on since the beginning of the Disney Plus CU, I guess that's what it's called. Riri's fight with John has disastrous effects for her relationship with the gang and Parker, as well as Zeke. Of course, she left behind technology that got traced back to him. We all knew this was coming the exact moment she swore she wouldn't let him get caught up in her shit. I didn't like how she played it when she was visiting Zeke in jail. I mean, you're cracking jokes like you did something as small as spilling juice on someone's term paper, and not that you revealed his identity to the world and brought on some of the exact things that Zeke feared, like not wanting to be like his dad or ruin the legacy of his name, while trying to find the space and place to make your own way. I'm sure we all feel that, right? Meanwhile, without his right-hand man, Parker becomes more isolated. He dons the hood at all times and openly shuts Riri out of the gang's plans. This causes her to become even more paranoid about keeping her people safe. But you can't do that while continuing to lie and not let people in. Communication is key, but Riri thinks that she can do it all herself. Newsflash, she can't. So when she decides to finally share a little bit with her mom, Ronnie, we're introduced to Zelma, the daughter of Ronnie's friend, Madeline, who herself is played by the incomparable legend, Cree Summer. Shout out to her, man. Been around all my life. Who's a self-taught sorceress. The whole sequence in the shop was a shot of even more intrigue for me, tying the show to the more mystical side of the MCU neighborhood, where Doctor Strange and them live, right? I particularly loved Zelma, and I consider her the MVP of the second half of the season, sort of like how I felt like Natalie was the MVP for the first half. Zelma is smart and talented enough to tie the hood to Dormammu, who we all should know from the first Doctor Strange movie. But when the gang comes to collect Riri's head, she's left without her suit and Natalie, who were just captured by Slug, right? They had to show Riri outsmart this group. It was integral to making Riri herself a factor. She didn't have the power of her suit on her side, but she had heart and that big brain of hers, right? All of this was a prelude to the inevitable fight between Riri and Zeke, which I consider like a rehash of the Iron Man versus Ironmonger fight from Iron Man 1. But now Zeke has the power as a buddy from infamous Second Son. We'd seen earlier that Zeke has all these crazy ideas, but now instead of Riri to ground him, he has Parker in the gang who let him do the worst to himself. and they end up holding the keys to control him. Now, we all know Zeke feels some kind of way from being exposed by Riri, but he's not a bad dude, man. He was just talking Riri into accepting the mantle of hero days before. He has every reason to be mad at her, but he doesn't go through with killing her, though he completely dismantles her suit. I mean, at this point, I'm wondering what the price tag for all the technology Riri has built into the suit and has been destroyed twice in the season. It's got to be in the millions or something. The mercy of him not turning Riri in is replicated when Clown not only vouches for Zeke when he decides to lie to Parker about it, but Clown has her own doubts that were planted by Riri during their fight. When she finds out that Stewart died and that Parker ordered it, she and the rest of the gang leave Parker on his own. Without the family he built, Parker decides to go for the final heist with Zeke as his attack dog. Come to find out, all of this that he had going on was because he was abandoned by his own tech mogul father as a child. I mean, Buddy donned a mystical cape and murdered several people before going to therapy. Speaking of therapy, Riri has her own issues. I mean, as we've said before, she runs from her problems when she can. Her mom encourages her to fight instead of flee or freeze. And what follows is one of the most heartwarming moments of the show, a flashback of Riri working and then dancing with her stepfather, Gary. Shout out to Leroyce Hawkins, man. He's a Chicago native who puts on for his city damn near in every role I've seen him in, from Chicago PD to Southside, which they need to bring back. I ain't gonna lie, a brother got a little misty-eyed watching that scene. All I can say is fathers matter, especially black fathers. What follows is a montage where Riri and Ronnie, Zelma, and Xavier, who's Natalie's brother, work to rebuild her suit so she can use Dormammu's cape to power it. No one thought this was a bad idea? I mean, then Natalie gets deleted and the stakes are raised even further. Now, my highlight from the final episode isn't the final fight between the Hood and Ironheart, though it was a good one. I mean, the CGI version of the Hood looked true to what I've seen from his appearances in the comic, and I'll continue to praise Anthony Ramos for his turn as a bad guy. I mean, he's very charismatic, if not a little short-sighted in this character. I mean, the highlight for me, though, I gotta admit, was finding out who was behind Parker getting the Hood in the first place. Mephisto, played by Sacha Baron Cohen. Yeah, Borat. And he really made the role his. I mean, I love his ability to go from being really schmoozy and obviously pulling some kind of hustle on someone to something that causes parts of you to tremble in fear when he talks. I mean, ultimately, Riri wins that fight only to be greeted by Mephisto and made an offer. He is the final boss. And I mean, the show ends jumping back and forth between Riri in a future state and Riri contemplating Mephisto's offer. I mean, he wants to give her whatever it is she desires, and Natalie just got deleted. But my rule of thumb is that anytime someone says, you won't even really miss what it is that I want, the cost is going to be way higher than you could ever imagine. We as the audience want Riri to win, but time and time again in the show, we're shown that our girl is making decisions that benefit her in the short term. And ultimately, she makes a deal with Mephisto for Natalie's return. We're left to wonder at what cost. At the same time, we see the corruption that we saw slowly overtake Parker begin to spread upon Riri, who's now rocking her signature curly afro from the comics. I ain't gonna lie. On a work night, I watched the entire rest of the miniseries, and then I said, whew, that was a lot. But where do we go from here? I mean, I'm not sure that we'll get a second season anytime soon, at least. I mean, the fan base may be split on this one for reasons that I don't care to repeat. It is what it is, I guess. I mean, it's a damn shame because what comes next is going to be a treat for everyone to enjoy. We know that the MCU is going to change forever after the Fantastic Four arrive in a few short weeks. I mean, bringing with them the ability for a character to traverse through the universes. But we already know that Photon did it first in the Marvels, but they didn't watch that one either. But bringing Dormammu back in the frame and introducing Mephisto has me excited for the mystical parts of the MCU. Doctor Strange and Iron Fist even. Watching Zelma magic her way around that candy shop made me excited for the prospect of Strange Academy being a thing, which will probably be another show. Will Riri be a part of that through her relationship with Zelma? I mean, time will tell when we see our girl next, but I gotta know what happens and what Mephisto is using her for. I mean, we're surely gonna run into Zeke again, but I wonder who he'll choose to be by then. What kind of powered person will he be, hero or villain? More the idealism that he had early on, or another version of Ironmonger? Now look, there's been a lot said about the character Riri Williams and her shortcomings and issues that people who care way too much about, who should continue the legacy of the beloved character who isn't here any longer. I mean, whether she sells comics or not, I can say with certainty that this show shouldn't be skipped because of the possibilities that it creates in its wake. It's like that pebble they threw out there, and there's going to be ripples felt by everybody. I've got my own issues with things in the show. Like, it's not perfect by any means. How Riri, who didn't seem to know who Zelma was, even though their moms are close friends, or how Riri could be so confident in turning into a life of crime in a suit that everybody in Chicago knows belongs to her. But it's nothing like the excuses that people seem to make to want to hate her. In the last 3 episodes, we got to see how Riri's flaws, trauma, and shortcomings could influence a person to make the wrong choice or choices. That may be one of the most honest human traits we've seen in the MCU. Seeing this show, especially right after Thunderbolts, or the New Avengers if you want to call it that, heartens me to see Marvel handle issues around mental health and bring it to the forefront, and trauma, with such grace. But it doesn't go right every time, and we see that here. For a lot of people who've already closed the book of judgment on Riri Williams, there's nothing you can say or show them to redeem her to them. For which, that's interesting to me. For months, I've seen people give so much bail to John Walker, also known as U.S. Agent, who murdered a dude with Cap's iconic shield and ended up being a deadbeat dad. They're probably still in the Marvel subreddit glazing him and trying to justify the killing of a person, a perceived threat, a person who was giving up, and the immediate impact of the loss of his friend Lamar. And that's fine, man. But if you can't see a young person doing dumb, short-sighted shit for their own reasons, that says more about you than the character. But whatever. I want to know your thoughts. If you've watched Ironheart in its entirety, let me know what you liked and where you see things eking out in the future for the MCU. July is already looking like the month for movies, between Superman and Fantastic Four, Jurassic World coming out, F1 just came out, 28 Years Later just came out. I might have to see all of those. I'm not going to lie to you. I can't wait to see how it all plays out and stay around for those after credit scenes. Once again, my name is CapnTrippz, man, and we're talking TV. Peace.